The private investigator thought he was the one doing the watching. For nearly 2 weeks, he'd followed his target through empty streets, shopping centers, and quiet neighborhoods. Every day, he documented their movements. Every night, he reviewed the footage. Then, on the 12th night, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. In every single photo he'd taken, someone else was there. Not the person he was hired to follow. Someone watching him. The same man. The same expressionless face. The same dark jacket. Standing in the background. Day after day. Closer every time. Private investigators are hired to uncover secrets. They're trained to spot lies, track people, and find answers. But sometimes, during an investigation, something changes. Sometimes the person being watched realizes they're not alone. And sometimes, the investigator becomes the target. Tonight, you'll hear 3 disturbing true horror stories from private investigators whose cases took a terrifying turn. Stories where the hunter became the hunted, and where the truth was far worse than anyone imagined. In 2017, private investigator Ryan Mercer received what seemed like a routine surveillance assignment. Ryan had worked private investigations for almost 11 years in Oregon. Most of his cases involved cheating spouses, insurance fraud, or locating missing people. Nothing unusual. Nothing dangerous. At least, that's what he believed when a woman named Linda walked into his office. Linda was worried about her younger brother, Daniel. Over the previous 6 months, Daniel's behavior had changed dramatically. He'd become withdrawn, paranoid, secretive. According to Linda, Daniel constantly claimed someone was following him. Nobody believed him. His family assumed he was struggling with stress or mental health issues. But Daniel insisted the same thing every time. Someone was watching him. Linda wanted proof. If nobody was following him, she hoped surveillance would finally put his fears to rest. Ryan accepted the case. His assignment was simple. Follow Daniel for 2 weeks. Document his daily activities. Identify any suspicious individuals. Then provide a final report. The investigation began the following Monday. For the first few days, nothing appeared unusual. Daniel followed a predictable routine. He left for work every morning, stopped at the same coffee shop, returned home before sunset. Ryan observed him from a distance and recorded everything. No threats, no stalkers, no suspicious activity. But on the 4th day, Ryan noticed something strange. Daniel constantly looked over his shoulder. At intersections, inside stores, even while sitting alone in restaurants. It was as if he genuinely believed someone was nearby. Ryan started paying closer attention. Still, he found nothing, at least not at first. The first real red flag appeared on day 7. That evening, Ryan parked outside Daniel's apartment building. Around midnight, Daniel suddenly exited the building and began walking down the street. Ryan followed. Daniel walked nearly 3 miles through empty neighborhoods, occasionally stopping, turning, looking behind him, then continuing. Eventually, he returned home without speaking to anyone. It was bizarre, but not terrifying. Not yet. The following morning, Ryan reviewed the surveillance photographs he'd taken during the week. That's when he noticed it. A man standing across the street. Dark jacket, baseball cap, hands in pockets. Ryan assumed it was coincidence. Until he looked at another photograph. The same man appeared again. Different location. Same clothes. Same posture. Ryan's stomach tightened. He checked another image. And another. And another. The man appeared in all of them. 7 separate days. 7 separate locations. Always far in the background. Always facing Ryan's direction. And somehow, Ryan had never noticed him in person. The discovery bothered him enough that he began actively searching for the individual during surveillance. But the man never appeared. At least not where Ryan could see him. Only in photographs. Every evening, new images revealed the same figure. And each day he seemed closer. By day 10, the man appeared less than 30 feet away. By day 11, less than 20. Ryan considered contacting police. But first he wanted identification. A name. A reason. Something. Instead, Things became much worse. On the 12th night, Ryan returned home exhausted. He uploaded that day's surveillance images, then froze. One photograph showed Daniel entering a grocery store. But Ryan wasn't looking at Daniel. He was looking at the reflection in the store window. Standing directly behind Ryan's vehicle was the same man, staring directly into the camera. For the first time, his face was visible. And he was smiling. A slow, unsettling smile. Ryan immediately rushed outside. His driveway was empty. No vehicles, no people, nothing. The next morning, he resumed surveillance anyway. At noon, Daniel suddenly approached Ryan's parked vehicle. Ryan had never spoken to him before. Yet Daniel walked directly to the driver's window, then said something Ryan would never forget. "Now you see him too." Ryan felt every hair on his body stand up. Before Ryan could ask questions, Daniel walked away. The case ended that day. Ryan submitted his report and withdrew from the investigation. Weeks later, he learned Daniel had moved across the country without telling anyone. No forwarding address. No explanation. Ryan never discovered the identity of the man in the photographs. But years later, he still keeps one image, locked inside a filing cabinet. The photograph where the stranger stood behind his vehicle, smiling. Because despite countless examinations, nobody has ever been able to identify who took the picture. Ryan certainly didn't. And according to the timestamp, the photograph was captured from outside his car, at a moment when he was completely alone. End of story 1. Wick. In 2019, private investigator Jason Holloway accepted a case that should have lasted less than a week. Instead, it became the reason he installed cameras around his own house, and why he eventually left private investigation altogether. Jason had spent nearly 14 years working cases throughout Northern California. He'd dealt with angry spouses, violent suspects, and dangerous criminals, but nothing compared to a client named Richard Bennett. Richard first contacted Jason through email. The message was brief, professional, and oddly specific. He wanted surveillance conducted on a woman named Emily Carson. According to Richard, Emily was his former fiancée. Recently, she'd begun appearing near places he frequented: coffee shops, parking lots, his workplace. He believed she was stalking him. At first glance, the case seemed straightforward. A simple stalking investigation. Jason agreed to meet Richard in person. The meeting took place at a small diner outside town. And from the moment Richard sat down, something felt off. He appeared nervous. Not frightened, nervous. Like someone worried about saying the wrong thing. During the meeting, Richard handed over a thick folder. Inside were photographs of Emily, addresses, work schedules, vehicle information, phone records, even details about places she'd visited years earlier. Jason found it strange. Most clients didn't possess that much information. When he asked how he obtained it all, Richard simply smiled. "I've had a lot of time." Jason didn't push further. He accepted the case and began surveillance the next day. Emily appeared completely normal. She worked at a veterinary clinic, visited her parents regularly, spent weekends with friends. Nothing suggested stalking behavior. Nothing suggested criminal activity. For 5 days, Jason followed her. And for 5 days, he found nothing. Then he received a phone call. The voice was female. Calm, quiet, and immediately unsettling. "Stop following me." Jason sat upright. He never used his real name during surveillance. Very few people knew he was involved. "Who is this?" he asked. The caller ignored the question. Instead, she said, "You should be investigating Richard." Then the line went dead. Jason assumed it was Emily, but the call bothered him. The next morning, he started researching Richard. What he discovered changed everything. Several years earlier, Richard had been questioned in connection with a missing persons case. No charges were filed. No evidence connected him to the disappearance, but the investigation remained unsolved. Jason dug deeper. More strange details emerged. Former girlfriends who abruptly moved away. Old police reports. restraining orders, complaints. Nothing enough for arrest, but enough to create concern. Jason decided to continue surveillance. Only now he was watching both people, Emily and Richard. 3 nights later, things escalated. While reviewing footage from outside Emily's apartment, Jason noticed something unexpected. Richard's vehicle, parked half a block away, at nearly 2 in the morning. Watching, Jason photographed the scene, then followed Richard. The vehicle traveled through several neighborhoods before stopping outside an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. Richard entered. The lights remained off, yet he stayed inside for over an hour. When he finally emerged, Jason entered the property. The interior was nearly empty. Dust covered every surface. Broken furniture littered the floor. But in one room, Jason found something deeply disturbing. Photographs. Hundreds of them. Attached to walls. Organized in rows. Every photograph featured Emily. Some were recent. Others dated back years. Many had clearly been taken without her knowledge. Jason immediately left. The next morning, he contacted police. But before he could submit evidence, he received another call. This time it wasn't Emily. It was Richard. His voice sounded unusually calm, almost amused. "You went inside." Jason's blood turned cold. He never told anyone about the house. "How do you know that?" Jason asked. A long silence followed. Then Richard laughed, a low, unsettling laugh, before saying, "Because I watched you do it." The call disconnected. Jason immediately checked security footage from his office. What he found made him sick. The previous night, while he had been investigating the abandoned house, someone had entered the parking lot outside his office. Someone wearing dark clothing. Someone who stood directly beneath the security camera, looking upward, smiling. It was Richard, and in his hand was a photograph of Jason. Taken only hours earlier. The realization hit him instantly. Richard had never hired him to investigate Emily. The assignment had been a test. Richard wanted to know whether Jason would discover the truth. And once he did, Richard shifted his attention from Emily to Jason. Police raided the abandoned property later that week, but Richard disappeared before they arrived. His vehicle was found abandoned near a state forest. No sign of him was ever located. No body. No evidence. Nothing. The case remains officially unsolved. But what disturbed Jason most wasn't Richard's disappearance. It was something found among the photographs. One image had been hidden behind a wall panel. Unlike the others, it wasn't a picture of Emily or any previous victim. It was a photograph of Jason, standing outside his own home, taken nearly 3 weeks before Richard first contacted him. Meaning one horrifying possibility remained. Richard hadn't chosen Jason for the investigation. He had chosen him as the target. He had chosen him. By the time private investigator Michael Grant received the call, he had already spent nearly 17 years in the profession. He was experienced, respected, and known for taking cases that other investigators avoided. Missing persons, cold cases, disappearances, the kinds of investigations that rarely ended with happy conclusions. But one case would follow him long after it was over. A case that eventually convinced him there are some questions that should never be answered. It started with a woman named Karen Whitmore. Karen contacted Michael regarding her son, Aaron. Aaron had vanished 11 years earlier. At the time, he was 23 years old. Police searched for months. Volunteers covered hundreds of miles. Nothing was found. Eventually, the case went cold. But Karen never stopped searching. Then, 11 years later, something impossible happened. A photograph arrived in her mailbox. No return address. No note. No explanation. Just a single photograph. And Aaron was in it. At least, it appeared to be Aaron. The image showed him standing beside a gas station somewhere in a rural area, wearing ordinary clothes, looking directly at the camera. The photo appeared recent. And that was impossible, because Aaron would now be 34 years old. The man in the picture looked exactly 23, not a day older. Karen wanted answers. Michael accepted the case. The photograph became his only lead. At first, he suspected a prank, perhaps an old image, a look-alike, photo manipulation. But forensic analysis suggested otherwise. The photograph was recent. Less than 2 months old. Michael began tracing the gas station. It took weeks. Eventually, he identified the location, a remote highway nearly 4 hours from Aaron's hometown. The station had long since closed. The building now sat abandoned. Michael drove there alone. The structure looked forgotten. Broken windows, rusting fuel pumps, overgrown weeds. Yet something felt wrong. The dust around the property contained fresh footprints. Someone had been there recently. Inside, Michael discovered evidence that the building wasn't entirely abandoned. Empty food containers, water bottles, blankets, signs that someone had been living there. Then he found photographs, dozens of them, hidden inside a cabinet. Every image showed travelers stopping at the gas station over the years. Most appeared ordinary: families, truck drivers, tourists. But one detail stood out. The same man appeared repeatedly, standing somewhere in the background, watching. In one photograph from 2008, another from 2012, another from 2016, another from 2019, the same face, the same appearance, no visible aging. Michael felt deeply unsettled. Yet he continued investigating. Over the next month, he tracked old property records connected to the gas station. The search led him to a nearby farmhouse. The property had been abandoned for decades, or so records claimed. When Michael arrived, he noticed tire tracks, recent ones. Someone had visited. Inside the farmhouse, he discovered something he would never speak about publicly: a room filled entirely with photographs. Thousands of them, covering every wall, every surface, every inch of space. Most showed strangers, random people, different years, different locations. Yet one face appeared over and over again, the same man from the gas station photographs, always watching, always present, and never aging. Michael spent hours examining the room. Then he noticed something else: new photographs, near the back wall, photographs of himself. His heart nearly stopped. Some had been taken days earlier, others weeks. One showed him leaving his office before Karen had ever contacted him. Another showed him entering a restaurant months before the investigation began. The timestamps were genuine. The dates were real. Someone had been watching him long before the case existed. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked upstairs. Michael froze. The farmhouse should have been empty. Another creak. Slow footsteps. Directly above him. Moving across the ceiling. Michael called out. No response. The footsteps continued, then stopped. Silence filled the house. Michael drew his flashlight and climbed the stairs. Room by room, he searched. Nothing. No people. No signs of entry. No signs of escape. Just empty rooms. Then he reached the final bedroom. The door stood slightly open. Inside was a single wooden chair facing the window, and sitting on the chair was a photograph, freshly printed. Michael approached slowly. The image showed the room he was standing in. The chair, the window, the doorway. Everything exactly as it appeared, except for one detail. In the photograph, someone stood behind him, a tall figure, watching. Michael spun around. Nobody was there. The room was empty. He left immediately, and never returned. Weeks later, police searched the farmhouse. They found nothing. No photographs. No furniture. No evidence. The entire room had been stripped clean, as if it had never existed. Karen never received answers about Aaron. The investigation officially remained unsolved. But 6 months later, Michael received an envelope in the mail. No return address. No fingerprints. Nothing. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Michael asleep in his bedroom. The timestamp indicated it had been taken 3 nights earlier. On the back was a handwritten message. Just 4 words. Case closed. Keep watching. Michael retired the following year. To this day, he refuses to discuss what happened. But according to one former colleague, there was one detail Michael never included in any report. The figure appearing in the farmhouse photographs, the man who never aged. The man who appeared in pictures spanning decades had the exact same face as Aaron Whitmore, the missing man, the man who vanished 11 years earlier, and according to every official record, should not have been there at all. Stirred. Private investigators are trained to uncover secrets, to follow leads, to expose the truth. But sometimes the truth isn't waiting to be found. Sometimes it's watching from the shadows, waiting for someone curious enough to come looking. And when that happens, the investigation changes. The hunter becomes the hunted, and the investigator becomes the target. If you enjoyed these disturbing true horror stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more terrifying tales. Because somewhere tonight, someone may already be watching.